be a straight shooter. When you were seeing my pictures back in the 90s, what did you say?
I said, this guy's got great abs, but he's just way smaller than everyone else.
Great abs, but way smaller.
All right, so here we are, episode 24, Cutler Cast. We have a special guest. I mean, this is someone we talk about all the time on the podcast anyway, but milus Sarcev. What's happening, man?
Yeah, Jay, thank you for inviting me. Matt, also. I am dying to be on this podcast. I mean, I'm dying to talk to you. I know you since 96, basically. First time I've seen you. I don't know if you even remember. You were training in Venice Golds, and, everybody's talking about this kid. And, I looked at it, and let me tell you, I mean, I'm honest, as you know. I said, like, okay, he's good, great. But, I don't think in the 90s with Kevin and Sean and Flex and Nasser and everybody else, like, okay, he's not going to really leave the impact.
Well, I mean, your ego, where you were still competing then, you know what I mean? Yeah. You were considered a front guy, and I had a great haircut, though, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did. But you see, sometimes you see some guys, their potentials, but you don't really, say, okay, he can be Mr. Olympia. So at that time, if somebody would tell me, this guy is going to be Mr. Olympia, I would say, no way. This is how I saw it. But then when you start developing, right, and especially as we talk about 2001, when you stood on that stage right next to Ronnie Coleman, and I said, instantly, first second, Jay won the show. And this is when you came up to the 8th place in 2000, right? And then 99, can I say you were like 15 out of 16?
Yeah.
Should you now?
What you were in 99? You were 10th.
Yeah, I was 10th. Yeah.
So that means you're better than Jake.
Yeah, I tell this to my daughter every time.
Your daughter was my biggest.
The biggest fan, yes.
Yeah. So, listen, you beat me. We're going to cut this straight up. Milus has beat me 4 times on the competitive stage.
3 out of 4.
Oh, okay. So, Olympia 99.
Yeah. The Nether Champions 98, your pro debut?
Yes.
I
thought we tied, bro.
Yeah, we tied. Hold on a second.
We were 11th. We were 11th.
There was highs and lows. We had the same amount of points, but the highs and lows, gives the favor to one guy. So I was officially, in front of it.
So he got an extra win by default.
I'll take it. I don't care. There's the same amount of points. They gave it to me. So
listen, we were both pissed that we got 11th. Right? It was my debut. Yeah. You were definitely pissed. You got 11. So
I was not too happy, right? But I tell you, 98. Because 97 was, I think, my best year. And I won Canada and went to Nether Champions and played close second to Chris Cormier. It could go either way, really. I thought that was my best. So 98, my wife was pregnant, and due date was Nether Champions. So I didn't sign the contracts. Back then, you remember, you have to sign the contracts. And then if you don't, you get in trouble. Yeah. So I didn't. And then my wife was 2.5 weeks early. So, okay, and then like in 3 days from that day, there was a San Francisco Pro. I didn't really train for the contest, and I didn't even plan it, right? But you're always in shape. I mean, I was in decent shape. So I decided to enter San Francisco, and I was top 5. And then I went to Canada, and I think I was 7th there. And then I went to Nether Champions. Yeah, and that was the time when they had the diuretic testing, and so we experimented with different things. At that show, I wanted to try these plasma expanders and mannitol, the osmotic diuretic. And it was one of those things like you look at yourself in the mirror like 1 hour before the show. Oh, yeah, hell yeah, right? And then you go backstage and you take the clothes off and say, what the hell? Happened, this is how it was. So I didn't like that. But then 98 Olympia, I entered and I was 11th. But there was just not enough time, and there was a lot of things. I lost the Metrics contract, and then Weider gave me like half of what I was making with Metrics, so it was kind of stressful. In 99 Ironman, I know that you were going in, and Chris Cormier and Lee Priest and Gunter, Darren Charles, like lineup was crazy. So I said, I have to make a difference. So I blew myself up, as you know, my insulin protocols and everything, because Ironman lights favor full guys.
for-
yeah.
yeah.
So you came ripped to the bone.
Yeah.
And condition-wise, you out-conditioned all of us. Gunther was also good. Yeah, if you remember.
Structure was a little limited, right?
Yeah. Structure. Yeah, he's a big guy, and he's another guy that I would say I would never think that he can win the Olympia with his structure, but then he came close. But at that show, I remember after the finals, Chris Cedar came. We were there together. He goes, "You two guys are most underrated bodybuilders." I remember him saying this very well.
Meaning who? You and I?
You and I, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And that's coming from Chris. Obviously, Chris was working with you. And then we went to
Arnold
Classic, and you beat me there, probably by a point.
Yeah, it wasn't much. I think I
So
was.
he's 1 point away from being
So I was fourth.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
back, what was cool back then, we qualified, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference. Qualification was top 5, right? I think top 3 at the Ironman, and then top 10 at the Olympia.
Yes.
So that allotted us, and it was kind of a breather for a lot of us because the contracts relied on it, right?
Yes, big time.
Especially if you're a Weider contract. I don't know about you, but I didn't sign a multi-year Weider deal. I was year to year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. You are most marketable guy, so you could do that. You can afford these kind of things because you can negotiate better contracts. We didn't have that commodity. I was looking for a long-time contract, yeah. And then, pretty much you accept something that is not great but decent, that you can live. Because, I'll jump in to tell you my story. When I was coming back from Serbia, I have those journals, famous journals, I was handwritten journals. On the first, in 1987, I wrote a 5-year plan. I'm going to come to the United States, which was almost impossible from Yugoslavia at the time, socialistic country with communist government, to get the visa for America. It was like dream about it. But say, I want to come to America. I want to win Mr. Universe. I want to turn professional, and I want to compete in Olympia. I want to make a living off of bodybuilding in 5-year plan. This is it. So my goal was that, but when I told this to people in my country, they were laughing, like, "What are you going to do? Come to America?" And
What was it like growing up in Serbia back then? Because they were still part of the USSR then at that time.
No, yes, they're different, but it's similar. I mean, we had a communistic party, as a ruling governor. So super strict, super restricted, and when the economy is bad and when you can make hardly to make ends meet, obviously you don't have a commodity of doing anything else. So how I got introduced to bodybuilding, right? My father put me in judo. First was actually karate, but then after 2 years I realized karate was not Olympic sport. So I said, okay, I want to represent my country. I want to go and I'm going to go to judo. So I went to judo, which I trained for 8 years. There was some weightlifting, and then one day I seen some magazine, right? There was no magazines in Serbia at that time. I said, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like, oh my God. I mean, really, there was moments and say, oh, human body can look like that? I mean, this is 80s, right? Actually, sorry, that's 70s now, 70s. And it's like, oh my God, this is possible? And then I look at Serge Nombre and Frank Zane.
How old are you at this time?
I was teenager, 13, 14, yeah. But, actually, it was already 16, 17. But the second I seen this one, I was like, oh my God, instantly, I want to look like that. That was like awakening. Oh, human body can actually look like that. And I'm sure that many people back then, especially in my country, they didn't even think about it. But where are you going to train? So there's no gyms, there's nothing. So we make up concrete plates, and you didn't have a bench. You just put the board on some bricks, and I mean, this is how we train. But I had a specific goal. I don't know why. I mean, right now when I look back, I never doubted for 1 second that I'm going to achieve that. See, I never put the plan, I'm going to win Mr. Olympia. That's why I really, greatly admire you. I have no idea what it feels like to actually be the best in the world. Maybe I set my goals kind of short, because I would just want to be one of the guys and qualify for Olympia. And as you say about this qualification thing, besides Sean Ray, I'm the only one that qualified for every Olympia in the 90s. Every single Olympia I qualified. I didn't compete 95 and 96 because I chose not to, because they were going for mass monsters, and I said, like, I would rather go to Europe and make guest posing money. I could make pretty well instead of competing and maybe placing 10th and being $10,000. Back then it was 5,000. So the thing is, I did very much believe I'm gonna accomplish all that, but I never really put that the goal of winning Olympia. But for you to maybe understand it, I had a $428.10 in my pocket. Coming to America, didn't speak English whatsoever, right? And as I competed in different federation, WPF, AAU, I was in European Championship in Italy, and president of federation said, "Oh my God, here is invitation for the Miss Universe in Tucson, Arizona. Carlos Rodriguez, he was a promoter. He used to be IBB Olympia competitor." So I said, "Oh, this is great." With this invitation, I went to actually embassy, and I got the visa. Like, oh my God, I got a visa. Now I have to buy the ticket. I can't ask my parents, for that they would never approve it. So I said, okay. But there was a one contest, 87, in Yugoslavia, that the winner supposed to get $1,100 equivalent in Serbian money. So I went to that show, and I'm Serbian, right? And then you have a Bosnian, Croatian competitors. There was 5 judges, 3 Serbians, and Croatian and Slovenian. Croatia and Slovenia gave me the overall victory, and all 3 Serbians voted against me, so I didn't win. So it's like, oh man! So now I can't buy a ticket, to U.S. But then this Croatian and Slovenian promoters, they invite me for guest posings, for some pictures with the weights, and I made enough money just to buy the ticket. And that's, my father was not a psychiatrist, my mother is a general practitioner. So they want me, of course, to be academic like them. So I didn't finish my university. So it's like, no, you can't go. I said, I want to go. This is once in a lifetime opportunity. No, you can't go. We're not going to give you money. So I said, here is, first, you're not going to get the visa. So I showed them a passport. And then you're not going to, how are you going to buy a ticket? I already bought it. So that was a major thing for them. But I said, okay, my father was, I see you in a week. Like, what I'm going to do there? I had a $428, right? And in Europe, a promoter paid for my hotel and everything. So I was kind of expecting in America too. But no, I came there, and basically 2 nights, it was $200-something. So now I'm like down to 200, and I'm supposed to make a living. But when I was in that European Championship, I couldn't afford the flight. I was on a boat from Italy back to Serbia. Bari in Italy, and Bar is in Serbia, in Montenegro actually. So on the way back, I couldn't afford a cabin, so I was just on the top, and there was 2 beautiful girls, right? Unreal. And they were both seasick, puking, like they couldn't even, get the hold of themselves. So I went there just to, help. I don't speak English or nothing. So as I was hanging out with them a little bit, until they got better, in the morning they came out of cabin and said, "Where are you going?" So they were going to Dubrovnik, in Croatia. So I said, okay, I'll go with them. And they basically gave me the address. If you ever come to the United States, they're in San Diego. So as a matter of fact, I came to the United States, but now I'm in Phoenix. So I just flew to San Diego and called them. And there it is. They really helped me. And
Really?
That's how it happened, yeah.
And we were talking about earlier, there's always an element of luck to every story.
It is.
Every story.
So speaking no English, not knowing anybody, okay, which I didn't realize at the time, those 2 were in Europe on their bachelorette trips because before they got married, right? But they did actually help me, and they let me stay with them. And I even got the job. I mean, put it this way: when you speak no English, Tarzan English, count to 10, I love you, fuck you, excuse my language. I mean, this is extent of my knowledge. And say, okay, there is a gym. There was Jack LaLanne's at Midway Drive in San Diego.
Yeah.
Just go there for interview. I said, okay, what am I going to do in an interview? But I was 23 years old, right? And in Mr. Universe shape. And of course, there was some cougar manager, that as soon as she saw me, she was just blabbing all the thing that I was doing is yes. I didn't even know what the hell she was saying. So girl that was with me, she goes, okay, you got the job. Monday you start working. So I didn't have a permission to work. It's okay, give me social security number, and I was like, I don't have it. So I used the social security number of that girl.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, this is a long time ago, though.
You have to survive.
Yeah.
But the problem was that you don't get the paycheck until 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And I literally ran out of money. So my diet was starvation. I mean, And I'm going to be even bold enough to say the truth. My father raised me, of course, never steal, never lie, and be honest and giving and good person, right? But one time I overheard him, the hungry person that steals the food is not a thief. It's justified, Okay. So I would go,
You're
to
a criminal.
Yeah. So confession. So I would go to supermarket, right? And as you're going through the, aisles and this, I would get the muffins, and I would literally inhale them. You can't even enjoy them and chew them slowly. I would just inhale them. This is how I survived.
So you just walked up and down the aisle.
Yeah,
down
the aisle. Of course, when you're not that kind of person, you're embarrassed as hell.
Yeah.
But hey, necessity is mother of all inventions, right?
Yeah.
That was a must for me. But I did get the job, and I imagine so. Minimum rate was $3.25 an hour. That was
For the wages.
Wages, yeah. But they hired me from 12 to 12 for $40 minus taxes, right? So I was making pretty much nothing, right? And then I have to train. So I said, okay, well, you can come train before, and you can stay after. And then they gave me opportunity to do the personal training before and after. So I would come at 5 o'clock in the morning to train, then train a couple of clients, then work 10 to 10, then train myself, and then go home. I slept maybe 3 hours in average.
How long did you do this for?
Year and a half.
So you weren't really chasing a bodybuilding career as much
But
at this point, right?
I was. I mean, I was competing. I was training for. So 87 when I came, I was 6th. 88 I was 3rd, and then 89 I won.
Okay. What show is that?
That's WPF Universe. Okay. So I accomplished that on my list, right? I came to America. Now I won Miss Universe.
That was professional, or?
Yes, so now I have to turn professional. But in Serbia, I didn't know that IFBB was leading. What do you know? So I was competing in this other federation, thinking this is the best. But then I realized it's not. And then I went to some NPC shows, and I've seen IFBB Olympia. Oh, shit. 98, there was Olympiad in 88 in Los Angeles, which I won, which I went to see. And and I said, like, okay, I have to be on the stage within 3 years. And 91, I was on the stage. But how do I get the pro card? So in one of the NPC shows, I went to Wayne Emilia and introduced myself, like, look, I'm, from Yugoslavia. There was no Serbia, right? From Yugoslavia, and I competed in this other federation, but how can I turn pro? So he says, oh, there was no phones back in the day. He said, you have any pictures? I said, yeah, as a matter of fact. I got prepared, and I gave him pictures from Las Vegas Classic. I entered in 89. So I was doing show every week also. I went to Atlanta, Georgia for...
So you competed in NPC even though you had a pro card in the other organization?
Yeah, I didn't get the pro card in the other organization.
Okay.
I just competed there. But then I competed in some Anaheim Iron Maiden show. There was not NPC. I didn't know anything. And then I finally competed at NPC. I won overall at the Coastal USA, 89. I competed with Flex Wheeler in California, state champion that he won.
That's the
I was
California.
fourth in the heavyweights. But then I came to Vegas just to be in Vegas, and then I heard there was a show. I said, oh, let me
Stevie
enter it.
Carr probably ran it.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
So I was there. I said, okay, I had opposing trunks, and I went there and I won that. And there was like national qualifier. So they gave me money for a trip to North Carolina for 89 USA. I don't think it was nationals. I think it was actually USA in the East Coast, which is usually the opposite, right? Oh, then there was nationals. So I went there, you know, and I'm pumping up backstage, and so somebody came up and said, hey, what's your name? So milus sarcev. I said, doesn't sound American, right? Yeah, you're American? I said, no. Are you a resident? No. What the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
So I was there. I was on the stage initially, right? But when I got off the stage, they told me, like, hey, man, you're just supposed to compete. And then I didn't compete. But to go back to Wayne D'Amelia, I gave Wayne D'Amelia my pictures from Steve Carr's show.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, wait a minute. So he goes to Jim Mannion and show the pictures. And he came back to me and he says, okay, tell your IBB Federation from Yugoslavia to send a recommendation letter, and we'll let you compete. It's like, oh my God. I mean, this is how many international athletes got it. Like Sonny Schmidt from Australia, right? Dorian, he won British Championship. So of course in US, you can win overall USA or nationals each category, right? And then there was North American.
North Americans
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, so this is how I got the pro card. You know,
lengthy process. I mean, people don't realize coming from out of the country, it's difficult. But it sounded like, you know, you came here with a dream,
yeah,
and you know, they granted you the pro status now, and you're in California. I mean, it's a hotbed. You were in like that time, and I think that was around the time, like I think 1990 was around the time the WBF launched, and like who was like you went to this '88 Olympia. Haney won.
Haney won.
Mike Christian second.
No. The second was Gaspari. Third was Barry DeMay. Fourth was Labrada, and fifth was Mike Quinn. Sixth was Brian Buchanan.
Okay.
Yeah. No, Christian didn't compete at that Olympia. Yeah, I loved Mike Christian. He competed. You know.
How many guys were in the Olympia that back then? As many as we have now? Is it like 16 to 20 guys, or was it less?
At that Olympia, there was about 15. Yeah.
Okay.
It was. Yeah.
And a lot of those guys were training in California. So at this point, had you visited Gold's Gym Venice?
No, actually, I never went. First time actually I went was 91 when I did my photo shoot for Flex magazine. I never went to, even though I was invited many times. I was in San Diego, and you know when you're a personal trainer and you work 6 days a week.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to have that.
And
drive.
were you training at that gym that you were managing, like working the desk or doing a personal training at?
Yeah, that was Jacqueline Lane's.
And was there the World Gym yet, or the Gold's Gym in San Diego? Was that? I know you ended up training there later, but
Rick Stevenson gym. Yeah, it was. But I was just hired there. I was working there, and equipment was great. You know, I didn't have a reason to go anywhere.
And by this point, you were learning to speak English, obviously. And
yeah. So, by the way, I mean, literally speaking, now when this lady told me Monday you're supposed to work, I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? So let me, you know, learn some words. So push, pull, squeeze, this kind of thing, right? And I really, you know, when you don't have a sense for a language, and I don't think I do, it's very hard. Like I was in Spain and Dominican Republic 1 year in each country, and I didn't learn Spanish. I mean, I just don't have that skill. But here, there was nobody to speak Serbian, and I just had to learn. And everybody there in the gym was helpful. You know, like when I was training somebody, I can't really express myself. They say, oh shit, then let me do the exercise in front of them, and then do the same. I could say that, do the same, right? So I would do the exercise, and they were helpful. And of course, next thing you know, you don't even realize you're communicating.
Yeah, when was your first pro show?
91, San Jose. And that's also a story. My father, shortly before, got a stroke. And of course, so first he had an amputated left leg. And then when he got the stroke, his right side got paralyzed. So you can imagine, the only thing that he had left was left arm. So my mom was taking care of him. He was, quite heavy, so she needed my help. So I came home, and after the stroke, you never know if you're going to rehabilitate completely, if you're going to recover. So everything was going quite slow. And I said, okay, I would train at night when he goes to sleep. And I didn't really plan any competitions or anything. But 17 days before the San Jose Pro Show, as he was doing better, and my mother and father said, okay, go, live your life, he's going to be okay. So 17 days before, I went back to San Diego and realized there is a show, and I don't have to pay too much money for a hotel and flight. Let me do it. So I went to that show really not expecting anything. Mm-hmm. Zero. I mean, I just like, okay, I have a pro card, might as well test the waters. And there was Albert Beckless competing, and John Brown. There was Ron Love, Sonny Schmidt, Franco Centuriello, Steve Brisboe. I mean, Tim Belknap, which I watched win in Yugoslavia. He won a world championship. So when I went on the stage, there was a friend of mine that just, please take as many pictures, right? So I'm not listening to Wayne DeMiglia. I'm just there, posing for the pictures because I'm next to Tim Belknap and Albert Beckless. Yeah. So I'm going to send this to Yugoslavia, right? I'm going to be a hot shot. I'm right next to these guys. But Wayne DeMiglia was calling me for a first call out. And he just couldn't pronounce my name, and I didn't hear anything remotely close to my name. And so finally he screamed, like, competitor number 2. And I said, oh, shit. I won the symmetry round in that show, and I placed 3rd behind Ron Love and Sonny Schmidt. So I qualified for Olympia. I mean, when you go into, not in my wildest, I didn't even consider this is possible. I was just there to have fun. And now, after the prejudging, somebody said to me, oh, yeah, you might be top 3. I said, come on. And then when I did win, 3rd place, next day, photo shoots, all the magazines. And now it's like, I was on the cover of everything. I guess young.
Handsome, yeah.
Semi-handsome, yeah. Yeah. So, this is, and in reality, I think I was like 215 pounds. I looked like a man's physique.
You know what? I started reading the books in 91 consistently. I picked up magazines when I was 12, but I started seeing you in the books then. And then I just remember you being on a lot of covers, Muscle Mag especially. We shared time even with the Weider contract. Yeah. So, did you win money for this?
For the magazines? No,
third.
Oh, yeah, there was $3,000.
So you must have been ecstatic, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're used to making $40 a day, $3,000.
That's
like hitting the lottery.
That's the thing is like we talk about, like you mentioned the Olympia, like what do I win $5,000? But for some reason, like I know I was over the moon when I won my first pro show in 2000 was a Night of Champions, and it was like $15,000, and like I was able to use that money to purchase a home. Yeah. And for me, like I used to think that, remember that was over 20 years ago, and it's still kind of the same money, so it doesn't seem like as much now. Yeah. But back then, 3,000 went a long way, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you're, and then of course standing on Olympia stage was, remember, we didn't have social media, so you couldn't be really famous on social media. So like the accolades meant that much. So not only you wanted to be able to have bragging rights back home, like that seemed like a big thing for you, but you were learning now to compete. You had a great physique. We talk about you were more slender, right? You probably had a crazy midsection, but the structure was there, but the size. I think you battled size through a lot of your career. Yeah. I want to get a little bit into that, but
tell me honestly now, be a straight shooter. When you were seeing my pictures back in the 90s, what did you say?
I said, this guy's got great abs, but he's just way smaller than everyone else.
Great abs, but way smaller. What's his name?
I remember someone said...
Mike Quinn.
He said, he's an ironing board with abs.
That's my queen that said. I was going to
And
say.
I
that's
never
exactly.
forget that.
Yeah,
because I was
yeah.
like 18 and I was impressionable. So I'm like, I didn't think like what an asshole. I just thought like,
Yeah.
well, I guess he's an ironing board with abs. You know,
So that means
that must have pissed you
You
off.
lost to an iron board 3
No,
times.
because this is he put on a lot of.
Yeah,
size,
that was
but-
my queen. My queen.
Were you pissed when he said that?
I mean, no, because it's true. It was true. I mean,
But dude,
I
you
was
just qualified for the
for
Olympia,
Olympia.
and listen, Mike Quinn, was he good back then?
every time I competed with him, I beat him, right? And I know that he hated it. But listen, when somebody, you say, I can take a criticism. I mean, I had no shoulders, no arms, no back, really, no calves.
But that was
initially.
his persona, though, right? He was
Yeah.
in that statement, wasn't he trashing everyone?
Possibly, but you know, this is how it is. Okay. When somebody beats somebody, or you get that hype and you are being placed high, and I'm competitive, and I just don't think you're better than me, and you know they just can't handle this, right? I would always be happy for everybody. If you beat me, I shake hands. But put it this way, Ray McNeil, for example, he was in San Diego. I beat him in some shows, and he comes to me. He was almost going to punch me. You know, you don't deserve to beat me. You know, what the hell? I say, Ray, I'm not the judge.
He was a Marine guy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I beat him pretty much every time except once. But then Night of the Champions, Pavel Yablonitsky and Nasser Asambadi. So Nasser was speaking German. So they came to me, and Nasser was going to translate. Pavel was pissed off that I beat him and I don't deserve to beat him. So Nasser came to translate to me. It's like, Pavel, I was not the judge. I'm sorry.
I haven't heard that name in a long time. He had those
I've
crazy
never
legs.
seen Pablo Jablonecki smile.
Yeah.
Had he ever smiled?
I did. I mean, I'm that way, you know, that I always try the conversation. I try to make people happy and
Yeah.
smile. I mean, Sonny Schmidt was, you know, man of few words, and I would just dig until he smiles. I mean, you say I'm ecstatic to see you smile and being really outgoing now. But when I met you back in the days, you were never smiling. You were really.
On stage, I did.
Because you
But
have
I
Jay,
see Pavel.
Jay, you can pull the video. 2006, Jay's finally winning Mr. Olympia for the first time. He beat the goddamn
I know,
Ronnie.
but-
No, it was
You don't gotta understand. I felt bad for Ronnie because there's like a backstory. We were kind of talking, and he's like, "You beat me," and I'm like, "Shit, man, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna enjoy this victory when Ronnie's like, he's pacing, you know, like."
How about the cartwheel?
Yeah.
How about the, I mean, sure, I was probably jump off the stage.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, you know, we go back and now like you're rolling, right? So I mean, you go to the Olympia in '91. That's Haney's last one.
Yes.
And it was in Walt Disney, right?
Yeah.
It was in
yeah.
Orlando.
Orlando.
Was it actually in Walt Disney World in Epcot or?
No, there was some other hotel.
Oh,
you
okay.
know.
I
It's,
thought it
think
was
it's-
in Walt Disney, like actually took place in there.
but you were not there, and I tell you a little bit because I remember this so well.
And this is historic because this is Haney's last
Last
right?
one. And if you remember, a year before 1990 was drug tested contest,
Yeah.
and it was questionable victory. You know, Lee Labrada could have maybe take him. I
You
don't
think
know.
should have won?
Yeah, could have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now Sean Ray was very vocal, speaking, you know, all this stuff. So we went to the press conference, and Sean was just like Mike Tyson when he said he's going to eat Lennox Lewis' children and this and that, right? I'm going to do this. So Sean was, I'll take your house, I'll take your car, I'll take you this, you know, to Lee Haney. And Lee Haney, the biggest gentleman that was ever on the
Yeah.
stage, right? And then everybody else, Lee Labrada was also, you know, so confident. Dorian Yates, one Night of Champions, you know, first Olympia.
First Olympia, yeah.
So I was backstage, and Lee just signed a muscular development contract. And you know how we the show, they were saying that's a bad move, you're not going to win, you know, because now, you know,
What politics?
politics, yeah. And there was up until 15 minutes before the stage, actually. And back then, 12 o'clock noon meant 12 o'clock noon, you're going to step on the stage. It was always ready. 15 minutes later, they call, 15 minutes, and he's still talking, right? And everybody's kind of peeking. He had some, suit like that. So finally, he excused himself, came to the first mirror, and took the jacket off. Didn't pump, didn't put oil, nothing. And I swear to God, like everybody just like froze. It was like, oh my God. little brother sit on a bench. Dorian just had that face. I mean, Sean Ray is like, oh, shit. It's kind of reminded me like when we had that photo shoot 2003 in my gym when Ronnie, I was standing right next to you. Ronnie came.
Tell that story.
Yeah.
I know we're jumping around a little bit, but you brought it up. So tell the damn story. Here's another one. We're going to.
That's a good one because let's face it, it's 2001. Jay beat Ronnie. I mean, I said this to Ronnie. Yeah. I said this openly.
He's not happy about that, by the way.
Yeah, this was really, I think I told you the story. Ronnie would always come to me and ask me for my honest opinion because I would always tell him. And then he came after the 2001. He was doing photo shoots in Flex magazine. And I said, okay, Ronnie, you want to know? He said, yeah, tell me. I said, Jay beats you. No way. And then next day, he came in and said, yeah. I've seen some pictures. I see what you're saying. He didn't beat me. He still didn't beat me. But I see what you're saying. I say, come on, Ronnie, he beats you, right? So that was it. But now, 2002, Ronnie didn't look too good, right?
I sat out, yeah.
Yeah, and you sat out, which I think was the biggest mistake. Yeah. But, you did 2001 Olympia.
Talk about this.
2002 Arnold Classic. Jay didn't show up 2002. At Olympia, Ronnie looked very beatable. Gunther beat him. I think that Gunther is the luckiest guy on planet Earth. He was good that year, and then he got the $1 million contract, right?
Yeah, and then he beat him at the show of strength like 2 weeks after that.
After that one.
Olympia,
yeah. So I was with Ronnie at the Amsterdam show after the Olympia 1 week before the GNC. So he was improved at the Amsterdam show.
Yeah,
he put some fullness back in. So I was actually with Sean on the phone when they were announcing the winners, and they announced Gunther as a winner. I remember screams and all that stuff. But bottom line is Gunther won that show, and then 2003 they're doing Flex Magazine photo shoot preview for the Olympia. Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Gunther, right? So Gunther, how had that smile. He never. I mean, I love that about him. He was constantly smiling. You were not. You were always serious, right? Confident, very, very confident. Which is good. There is a thin line between confidence and arrogance. Confidence I love, arrogance I hate, right?
Yeah, but hell yeah. I mean, I just won the Arnold in 02, sat out the Olympia, came back in 03, was at the Ironman, unbelievable.
2003 looked crazy.
And then, won the Arnold, and then I won San Francisco Pro. So here we are, like, that was the beginning of the season. Now we're rolling into Olympia. I'm like, fuck, this is mine, you know?
Yeah.
And Ronnie brought the Sandow. I don't know if you remember this. So Ronnie had the Sandow in your gym, and you owned, at the time it was Coliseum, right?
Yeah.
So that was the Flex photo shoot headquarters, right?
Yes.
So we all flew out there every, contest we did. So we all show up.
Yeah.
You remember what I was driving then, or? I always had different cars.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to this, but probably white Jaguar.
Yeah, that's what I had.
He goes, I don't pay attention.
No, I don't pay attention. You know why I remember this? Because my daughter took a picture with him. He had a dog.
How old was she then?
5.
I had Scrappy with me, the little white.
Yeah, Scrappy, 5 years old.
Yeah.
She drew your pictures, remember?
Yeah.
But
so we were in the gym. All of us show up there.
We were in the gym, and I was there. So first, I see him in Ironman 2003 looking like freak. This is probably up to that moment because of the lights and everything, your fullness, you were ripped, striations, like you had the fibers everywhere.
That's a clean in the biceps, by the way.
Did you? I used probably more acetylene than was ever produced. Yeah.
I had like 4 amps or something.
How many people even know what acetylene is?
But listen, I mean, acetylene, you could see the fibers as you stretch the biceps, right? Yeah. With all this Synthol and all this bullshit now, it just deforms you completely. But you were shocking at that show. I mean, bottom line, shocking. I get the goosebumps. I was there next to Chris
I pulled that up, 2003 Ironman, Jay Cutler.
Yeah. I was preparing Flex Wheeler for that show, Yeah,
I remember.
You know that story. But anyway, so for that...
that one,
Yeah, look at that. Tapered, full as a house, ripped, striated, separated. I mean, it was shocking.
No diuretics for that show either, bro.
No?
No.
Wow.
That's the 09 Olympia, but...
I was going to say.
Yeah.
But so you were standing next to Melvin Anthony and Flex Wheeler is supposed to be aesthetic guys, right?
Yeah.
And with your size and width, you're creating more aesthetic V-taper X
Illusions.
frame. Yeah. And size was not even comparable, and conditioning was not even comparable. You know, so with the momentum from these shows, back to the photo shoot, he is coming and he is confident. Gunther is confident. So I'm there right close to you. You were doing some biceps pumps, and here comes Ronnie. You know, comes from through the door. I said this really. It was eclipse. It's like fucking Jim got the dark, and you know how he walked and like a gorilla. I mean, there was just like a fucking and and Jay was a fucking monster.
You know, and you know what? I was so fucking mad because this was June,
Yeah.
end of June or early July, and I just guest posed with him and Gunter in May at Mannion Show, and then you know we go to Steve Weinberger's like June, whatever 5th. So within like this must have been July when we did the shoot. In that short amount of time, he must have put on 30 fucking pounds.
Yeah. I mean, and he's going to tell you, I mean, that was most muscular guy I've seen in my life at that point.
Still.
I mean, he was, Chris Dean was there and he took a picture. Chris Dean was Olympia competitor,
Yeah.
right? He qualified for 2000. He looked like one of the Ronnie's legs. I mean, it was crazy.
I still think to this day, as big as some of these guys are, it's not the same.
Yeah, but there's so many pictures, and I have those pictures. And I mean, he raised the smile. The life came out of you that day. I mean, like whatever spark you have in your eyes
Wasn't that his
was
biggest
gone.
year?
And
13? Oh,
and
three.
Gunther's smile was gone too.
Well,
Yeah.
Gunter had the fat pockets because he signed like that 3-year
3 year,
contract.
yeah,
You said, you know, so
Yeah.
he was like sitting pretty, you know, and you know, Ronnie was on a mission,
Yeah,
right? And you know, dude, your gym was like. I just remember I used to come out there, and I still stayed. I didn't stay next door because there was like a residence in, but I would go stay still in Costa Mesa.
Just
But
nice,
I really looked forward to coming out there every year because Chris Lund really pumped us up a lot with the things, and you'd run around with the camera. And back then, like they'd get mad because you'd release pictures on message boards. You know, this is pre-social media.
Yeah.
But you'd be showing up with the camera.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, he had that I don't know what that big light was, like they kept upstairs, but it made you look like unbelievable.
That was Chris
That was
Lund's
like that was Early's ring light looks, right?
You see, all the photographers wanted to find out how Chris Lund does those pictures, and because it makes you dramatic. Look, you can look so and so here, and then as you come in, where he set it up is like 20 weeks of dieting, and 10,000 units of insulin and growth. I mean, you just blow up differently. But yeah, that was the time. So, as you mentioned, Weider organization was pissed off at me that I'm putting the pictures of Weider athlete in phenomenal shape on a social, there was getbig.com.
Yeah.
It's not like I was making any money or anything. I'm a fan of the sport.
No, but you were making, like, how'd you get that deal so that they set up photo shoot in your gym? Because it used to be at Metrics. Do you remember what year they brought it over to your gym?
I think it was like, 2002. Yeah, from
and
2002
what kind
to
of,
2007.
so did you ask them to do it, or did they say, hey, you
Oh, no,
have a location?
Chris Lund came and see the gym, and then he says, I want to shoot here, and then Flex contacted me. Yeah, I did get paid for, Flex Magazine photo shoots, but it's Flex Magazine photo shoots they're being paid for, and they get the space, priority, they could do anything in my gym, right? But me as a fan, I mean, I wasn't making money of putting any pictures on the Get Big or anything. I mean, I remember taking those pictures of you. Yeah, probably one of the best pictures I've ever seen. I mean, he looked like a freak. And then there was a place in the gym in the middle, right under the window that it took all these pictures that you look sensational. And I almost lost the Weider contract because of it.
How did the gym come about? Like, when did you buy the gym? Like, how did that whole
It was
process?
Gold's Gym, right?
Yeah, 99.
I just remember it was Coliseum.
First was the Powerhouse. When I got it, it was the Powerhouse, and then I changed it to the Golds. I got the that deal. But then after I realized I'm paying too much money and I'm not really getting anything
For
in
licensing.
return, I said, like, why wouldn't I just make my own? So I switched it to Colosseum.
Did you actually put equipment in it, or was there
That was already
equipment?
there. Yeah, that was already there. I got a few more
Did
pieces.
Flex Equipment give you pieces for the gym?
You
'Cause you
know,
had some leverage pieces in there.
I did buy some Flex equipment.
I'm meeting with Mark now
Mark,
and
yeah.
having dinner here in a
Good.
few days.
Say
He's
hello,
coming to
yeah.
Vegas, yeah.
I saw Mark and Boyer Cole like a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
I know you live down that area, but so you got the gym around that time,
99.
and Sean Ray was the most famous guy training there, right?
Yeah, that was his place to go before I even got it. Yeah, so that was.
Oh, he
his-
was training there
He was training
already.
there already. Yeah.
And you gave him that front parking spot. I was
Never.
I was always jealous of that.
He didn't get that. He didn't get.
Well,
it.
you always-
Is that the gym that he went to in the battle for the Olympia?
Yeah,
with
and he
the,
parked it.
the
He always
Lamborghini?
parked his cars up in the front.
It wasn't even a
Always.
parking spot. He just
Yeah.
stopped it
So
right there.
how was he allowed to park his
He
cars
wasn't.
there?
I mean, some people wanted to call, to be towed
Get a
away.
car.
Really?
Yeah, but that never happened. Yeah.
You think he had the greatest car collection in bodybuilding, or he was always driving different cars, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You're feeling this. Sean got pissed off at me like that Lamborghini or whatever he has in the video of Fit
for
and Famous. No,
Right.
Fit and Famous, right? This Lamborghini, that was not his. And really, it's not
No, he
his.
showed me the check for it.
Yeah, yeah, no way. But so anybody that knows the story, it was not. So when I said this publicly once, I guess, when I came back from 2011 until 2017, I was out of the United States. So finally, I come to 2017, and I saw him at the Lou Ferrino show, and you would expect he's going to come say hello, and I think he's looking away all like pissed off, and I didn't understand it. And then Hiratare Yamagishi told me, oh, yeah, he is mad because you talked something about his car. And I said, it was not his car. What do you mean? What he's mad about? So, yeah, publicly, again, it was not your car.
Yeah, I saw the check though, so he actually had that vehicle.
How much is for? How much is it for?
100 and something thousand.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Oh boy,
I could be wrong, but there's no way.
another beef's gonna start.
No. I mean,
know,
I'm
I'm just
defending like what he sent me because I think I brought it up in one of the
think you
podcasts
did,
actually. So to go back to the gym, it was gold. You switched it over to Coliseum. You put all the images up.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that idea?
I mean, I liked it.
You did this
originally-
photo shoot over in Italy, right? At one point, and you dressed up with Alex Ardente.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was 99 Olympia. So Nasser somebody, Kevin, Ronnie, myself, a couple of other guys, we were dressed like as Roman warriors, and went to Colosseum. Now,
One of my favorite places to visit, by the way. It's amazing.
You get the chills when you come even
Yeah,
close and you go inside. So the thing was, there was Bob Gardner also, a photographer, and one
Used
more
to
for
do
Weeder.
I think, yeah.
And I said to Alex Ardente, let them go and attract the attention. All the security is going to go there. And let's go on the second floor. And as soon as we went there, of course, they were not allowed to shoot. I took everything off, put my outfit, and I have pictures inside the Colosseum, which is illegal to have. But I had those priceless
You're a
pictures.
criminal.
Yeah, I could have been arrested. But hey, I had it. This is once in a lifetime opportunity. I've seen Franco Colombo pictures back in the days, in front, but nobody.
You know what I'm
shooted
just
in
thinking of
front.
now? When we were in Egypt, Regan jumped up and took his shirt off on the pyramids. And we started taking pictures, and the police came over and took the camera and took it back and deleted it.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that we got a bunch of our cell phones, so we still had it. But yeah, they were like, it's serious.
So I was in one. I think it was Fry's. They had from a styrofoam statues of the Romans, and I really wanted to do that. I mean, there was like gladiators fighting and all that stuff. So that's what I wanted to do originally, but it was impossible. So I just put the murals.
And how long did you have that gym for?
10 years, from 99 until 2010. 11 years, yeah.
And during this time, I mean, you had stopped competing at a certain point and became
Yeah.
more of so-called the Mind, which I want to ask you how you ever got the name The Mind. I think it was an article, you had a column in Flex or something called The Mind, right?
Yeah. First,
I know you were doing a movie, and I want to talk a little bit about all that stuff,
too
right?
also. Yeah, that's good. 99, it was, I entered every show that was organized.
How many total shows have you done in your
72.
career?
72.
Pro shows.
Pro show, 72.
Is that the most?
No, Dexter, obviously. But at the time, yeah, I was leader. And then,
How many Dexter do?
I
Do we
don't know
know?
how many.
I think in 96.
Oh, that many, huh?
Yeah, he passed me in 2016. I remember in Australia, but yeah, I did every show 99 with you. We did the Ironman Honor Classic. Then I did Canada Night of Champions. Went to European tour, but that's when I got the gym, and obviously my career went to shit because once you have enough stress, obligation, you're there, and it just wasn't the same anymore, because. These guys from the gym that was selling me a gym, I guess they offered month before I came in to all the existing members, you can get 3 years for $300. So everybody, got that. So when I came in, I had all these members that are not going to be paying anything for 3 years. So I was kind of set up to fail so they can, get it back from me. But, I managed it to survive. But all that stress, I was, your mind is not in it. And, I started declining. When I finally wanted to make a comeback in 2006, that story of you and me in Romania, I mean, I was training with Hide and Dennis Wolf and Silvio Samuel, and I got in shape, when you train with them, and it was 2 times a day. I wasn't even paying attention too much to my diet, but I always eat like you, healthy. So what is it? Just a little bit more carbs, a little bit same amount of protein, and no cardio, and I was getting in shape. That story they said many times, but I have to brag about it because that's the moment. Jay beat Ronnie at Olympia, right? So finally happened, and we went to Austria. In Austria, I had like 5 guys competing. So I wouldn't dare even think I can maybe pull.
That was our first stop.
First stop, yeah, Austria, Vienna, yeah, and you won there, and Dennis Jans was there, Marcus Rule, many guys were there. So I chose not to compete there, but then I was in Romania. There was very few people going. Ronnie and Jay, Hide, and then there was a Russian guy, Adi Abu, a few more. So it's like I'm like in great shape. Let me take a diuretic and see what I look like. And, with Aldactone and Bumix at the time.
Yeah.
And not just that, we loaded. If you remember, there was a banquet afterwards.
Yeah.
I had like 8 apple strudels with the vanilla sauce. Yes, I said like, oh, I blew it. Doesn't matter. But I was so full, ripping full, and then dry. So it's like, oh, shit. Okay, let me just shave. I'm going to compete. Because they were going to have me as MC. So I tell them, okay, but I'm still IBB Pro Card holder. And Arnold Schwarzenegger back in 1980, remember, he went as a CBS commentator at Olympia, but instead of competing, he pulled a competitive number. And Mike Manzer, Boerko, Frank Zan, they went berserk. So I saw myself, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I can't beat Jay or Ronnie, but I honestly thought I could place third with the condition I was in, because I was very happy with it. So I managed to shave the legs and front, and I really needed just somebody to shave my back. Ironically, my today's wife, Betty, was Hidetada's best friend. I was traveling with him. So I was kind of going to ask her, it would be embarrassing, but who are you going to ask to shave your back? So that was the plan. And I was just about there, and phone rings, and there was Jay. I said, bro, can you do me a favor? So, of course, anything. So what do you need? I mean, protein. But Jay brought a sponge like this, right? And he has.
I brought the brush. It was the brush.
No, I brought this sponge. Sponge. And it was like, okay. So, and I was in my Colosseum shirt and in the posing trunks with the legs as white as this. I mean, I was, just like super white. I didn't even put the collar or anything. And he never asked anything, right? But as I was putting the collar, finally Hide came with the Betty for me to check on him as well. And I finished, and Betty took a picture of me and Jay. I mean, you can see there I was ripped and dry, right? And I was, quite a good size. I think easily I could have placed third. I could not contest you too, but
well, just because I had just won, it was kind of like
no, you were much
right?
better. You were much better.
But that was the strangest setup. Like it was the first European tour that I ever went on. I think after the Olympia, I went to Russia to compete, but in 2003.
Yeah.
But in 06, like it was like really strange, like setup. I remember like it was barely a stage, and like I don't even know how it was going to take place. But you were advertised as the MC, so that's why I felt like I'm like, oh, I can call Milus and he can do the Titan for me. Yeah. So I never thought anything of it. And then, of course, we're showing, and later you told me, and it made me, like, I still feel bad to this day.
No, I mean, it's I love the story. I love the story because really, I mean, who's going to have opportunity to put the collar on the reigning Mr. Olympia? I mean, look, I always consider you a friend, and you're dear to me. You were always nice to my daughter. You're a gentleman. I mean, the person that you are. So by all means, that was just like my idea. Maybe I can pull it off. Everything in life happens for a reason. Yeah. So I said, like, okay, I'm going to just prepare for my 2007 Ironman because Ironman lights are the best lights for me. So I'm just going to do that. But then I got suspended from IBBA. I could never do it. So that was a bummer.
Wow. So the mind, how did you get that nickname?
I read it first. I didn't expect nothing. So I get the magazine, Miller's the Mind. Peter McGough, an editorial of Muscle, Fitness, and Flax, they decided to call me this because every time I do the interview, it was different. It's not usual. And, I had different ideas of training, different idea of...
very scientific.
Yeah.
My father was a psychiatrist, and he always told me, don't live in a box and don't be forced to accept even the science. Read the science, accept what you see useful, and if you see something that doesn't make sense, explore. Maybe you can make it better. So just that whole supplement science. I mean, he is the first one to tell me, like, don't you realize that there's only one opportunity during a day, to have all this blood going to your muscle, which is when you train. Did you think like what you can accomplish with sending all this? Yeah. I mean, at that time, nobody was doing this. And I'm hearing now from my father, who is most educated, intelligent guy, right? But when you're a teenager, you kind of rebellion. For some reason, I don't know, we never wanted to listen to our parents, right?
Of course.
I don't know why is that. So... But he made so much sense, right? There is a blood going to the muscle contraction, open up the cell, you can push everything in. So I said, like, okay, this makes sense. Let me try something. So I went to the Serbian pharmacies, and there was essential amino acids, tablets made for renal patients, right? And socialistic medicine, it was free if you have a prescription. So I steal prescription book from my father. And I
criminal,
and I learned necesse est, and then how to write in Latin, my prescription. And I go to 10 different pharmacies, and I get my 10 boxes of EAAs. And I went to the supermarket, and I get the dextrose, right? And I was drug free. I came to Mr. Universe '87 drug free, And that was another thing when I was competing with the guys like Chuck Sano, some other guys. And I speak no English. So they say, what are you taking? EAA, protein, multivitamins. And they say, fuck you. So I said, fuck you, it's a bad thing. I don't understand. They were pissed off that I'm not telling them what steroids I'm taking.
But you really couldn't.
I didn't even.
Oh, they were expecting steroids.
They were asking what I'm taking in sense of... steroids, and I tell them EAAs, it's kind of insult, right? But I had no idea about steroids, at the time, because there was a picture in that same magazine that I told you that I've seen Arnold, that pose, right? It was crazy when he was super full, and underneath is no steroids. And I would fight anybody that would, say that Arnold was a steroids. I didn't believe it. So when I came '87, they asked me, they were insulted by my answer. And then I competed a couple of more shows, '87, '88, and I was losing to everyone. And then I realized if I want to pursue my bodybuilding and do what big boys do, I have to do that, right? So that's how it was. But about the supplementation, EAAs and glucose, I apply my father's idea. That's the hyperemia advantage. You increase blood flow to the muscle, you deliver this and insert it. So that's like one of the things. Flex Magazine wrote the article, Magic Workout Drink, which I was drinking, right? And they called me the mind, and then called Sean Ray the mouth. Yeah.
Where did you get the insulin come involved? Because you're known as the guy that has a lot of insulin knowledge and protocols.
Mm-hmm. In Eastern Europe, DDR, Eastern Germany, Romania, Bulgaria, Russia, I got some information about steroids, how they combine androgenics, anabolics, GH, and then there was insulin many times. And I didn't understand why insulin. So I started researching and said, oh, it's an anabolic hormone. It stores everything. We can use this to store benefits. But I didn't know how to use it. There was no explanation back then. So, but
around what time was this?
That was 92.
Okay. So
and
way
then,
back.
92, yes. And then on my first contest, 91, San Jose, Tim Belknap was diabetic.
Yeah.
And I remember he was taking insulin backstage and then eating, danishes and all this, sugary stuff. And man, once he started popping up.
Did he beat you that show? Or?
No, I beat him.
Okay.
I did beat him, yeah. But I mean, I beat him on symmetry on the lines.
He was pretty much. He was bulky.
He was bulky, and either way, if they gave it to him. But I've seen like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I was putting two and two together. So let me try the insulin. At the time, there was not that fast-acting insulin. There was Humulin N, R, U. So specifics, right? So Humulin R was the fastest acting. Mm-hmm. And that has a onset in 45 minutes, peak in 2 hours, and then out in 8 hours. So that was kind of hard to control. But I said, this is what we have. So then I would time it, to peak while I'm training. So I would take it like 2 hours before, and then you have to eat. But what to eat? So I didn't know how many units, how many grams of carbs. So I was experimenting with less than I supposed to, and then I would get the hypoglycemia, and then I would have to eat more. And after a few tryouts, I started feeling okay. So I said, oh, I conquered this. To maintain blood sugar level, you needed like so many grams of carbs per unit. And I determined back then there was about 10. You could get away with less, but, risk. So I would just put 10 grams per unit. And I published that article in Muscle Media 2000.
So this is where it all came from.
Yeah, that's.
You think that's where the protocol actually started from? Because I was always told.
Yeah.
I know when I started to learn about insulin, like it was 10 grams of carbs per unit, right? So if you took 10 units, you needed at least 100 grams of carbohydrates. But the continuous was the question mark because everyone's metabolism is different, so it comes back around, right?
Yeah. So it's like how long does it stay in your system?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can.
But that can depend on metabolism, correct?
You could, yeah. And like you said yourself, I mean, if you can mention that even with all the carbs that you take, you would still go hypo, and you were taking well over 10 grams per unit, right?
Yeah, I mean, at certain times, 10 before, 20 after, or whatever it was. Yeah. I had to build up, of course.
30 after.
Yeah, 20, 30, yeah. And then, another 10 or whatever,
Yeah. And I see.
But I've heard astronomical amounts, like up to 100 units at a time.
Some people?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how anyone could ever handle that.
You see, 20 units is already a supraphysiological amount, more than your pancreas would make it. So if you have more than you would normally ever make it, this is enough to create crazy. I was using 20-20, and
you could take 20 before you trained.
Yeah, 20 before and 20
with
after.
A lot of carbs.
A lot of carbs, yeah. You see, I was like you, didn't eat much fats. It would just be protein and carbs.
I didn't eat any fats.
Yeah.
I wasn't even eating steak, for dieting times. Yeah.
Wow.
Mostly, egg whites, white fish.
White fish.
I didn't even eat a lot of chicken. I'd use protein powders a lot,
So basically, you had less than 20 grams of fat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's a keto diet,
Yeah. But you had close to 1,000 grams of carbs, right?
Yeah, a lot, very often. So I think if I would have thrown some fats in there, I wouldn't have had to eat as many carbs, and maybe I would have had a better, different effect. I mean, you might have approached it different, but I kind of stuck with what worked, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, 2001, you look like absolute freak. I'm going to say it publicly, like I said many times, 2001, you won the Olympia. Everybody knows, including Ronnie. But you were on insulin, right?
Yeah, I did take it on and off certain days. But I was also, I'm not going to lie, I was taking 4 meals were, of course, carbs like rice and, some simples or whatever else. But I also had protein, 4 meals out of the 6, like protein powder.
Protein powder, yes. Yeah.
So can you get lean, or does it work? Like, would you, in someone's protocol today, use protein powders?
Yeah, it's only if you
Or
trust. If you trust, I mean, chicken is chicken, turkey is turkey, fish is fish. Protein powder is what they tell you it is, right? So if
it's not,
it is what it is, then good. But if it's compromised and you don't have a protein and amino acids they're expecting, but then you have more carbs and some garbage, obviously you had a good quality one because it didn't reflect on your physique. But audience would probably, because I love this story. 2001, you were on a lot of insulin. You were ripped to the bone, 285 before 2 weeks before the show.
A week before
the show. Because everybody was saying, like, oh, you can't use insulin. It would blow your midsection. It would make you hold water. It's, if you know how to control it, you even said you were getting leaner on it.
I was getting leaner, but I'll be honest, I stopped from after 2004. I never used it again from 05, 6, 7, 8, not, till the end of my career. Not to say that I didn't use metformin. Like, I used that in the off season, but never really pre-contest. So, and I mean, metformin I used for the first time in 96 when I won the nationals. I was introduced to metformin, like, just to make my, make the carbs the muscle more sensitive, but I didn't know anything about it. I just was kind of like, it was kind of introduced to me. But as far as insulin, I feel that, like, it was harder to maintain conditioning for me, using insulin it always works great. Like, the first time you really use it. Right. And I think around that time was really the first time I used it consistently. Right. Because I told you, I dieted down, like, from 16 weeks. I went on 50 grams of carbs a day, like 3 days. And then on the 4th day, I'd bump up to like 500-600 grams of carbs. And I got ripped in five weeks. And by 10 weeks out from the Olympian 01, I was already, like, shredded to the bone. So basically, Chris is like, listen, you're just going to have to eat, and he cut my cardio. And that's when, like, on the high days, like for back and leg days, I took the insulin. So, and then eventually it was like high carbs every day that I trained. So I would train on a 2-on, 1-off cycle. But on that two days, I was training body part, I was doing 4 workouts because I was training twice a day. That was the protocol. Like, today, no one trains twice a day.
Yeah.
And I think we talked a little bit off camera about this, but I want to touch on that in a second. But so I was kind of like, I don't believe a lot of cardiovascular is needed if you're outputting, because I feel that weight training does burn more calories than cardio. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There's no question.
So I was training intense. My rest periods of 45 seconds. I was eating my 6 meals a day. I mentioned, what kind of those carbohydrates versus protein were. Some simple sugars, white rice. I would have honey. I would add honey just to get to 1,000 grams of carbs is a lot, right?
It's not a joke, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's why I think I use the protein powders, because for me to eat, 8 ounces of chicken or whatever with that, and obviously we know if the carbs are that high, the protein doesn't have to be as much, and I think I was only like around 300 grams of protein anyway, like on a lot of days. I mean, if I was eating 50 grams of carbs, I eat 400 grams of protein, but I wasn't doing that at that point. So
only 400 grams of protein and 50 grams of carbs. So
and not a lot of fat,
Okay, so 400 grams of protein is 1,600 calories. 50 grams of fat is 200. That's 1,800 calories. You were less than 2,000 calories a day.
Yeah, but I mean,
for the love of God, that's less than your BMI.
And I came to the Ironman and you beat me. Now you know why.
Yeah, thank God you did. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day. So you can imagine I was training twice with weights too. So I was in the gym 4 times a day.
Yeah. You see, when I say about the everything, you want maximal results, not optimal, not minimal, nothing in between, right? You would want to. So I think you compromised a little bit. You overdid it, and you didn't have enough.
And it wasn't. Listen, Chris didn't agree with it. I said I'm doing 50 grams because I was so embarrassed after 98. Tying with you. No. He beat you. So I was so embarrassed because, I had won everything up to this. 96, you said we met, but I won everything. Took 97 off, and I said, I'm going to go full tilt into 98 because I knew my competition. Like you mentioned, you saw me in 96. I couldn't mess with Chris and, all these guys, Kevin and all of them. So
nobody expected it.
So I went into the 98 Night of Champions, and I'm like, I'm going to get called out with Kevin and Ronnie Coleman. Because Ronnie beat Kevin at that show. That was like the beginning of Ronnie's rise. And I was so pissed I got 11th, and I said, you know what, Chris, I'm going to do it my way. And he's like, okay, I'll guide you. He did not agree with 50 grams of carbs. I would have half a cup and a quarter cup of oatmeal. That was my 50 grams basically for the day.
Jesus.
So around the first workout, and then I would do that for 3 days, and then I'd bump up to crazy carbs on, whatever day, the fourth day, and I did the 2 hours of cardio, and I was shredded.
You were shredded. I mean, that was crazy conditioning. I think one time you even mentioned it. You loved your conditioning 99 Ironman. And then I heard you also 2003 Ironman. What is the best ever? Which version of Jay Cutler from any contest would you
think the 02 Arnold Classic.
02 Arnold Classic, really?
I was 273 there, and I think that was the best combination
of everything. I would say the 2003 Ironman. I remember.
It's the lights, though. The lights tell a different story. But we look at this. Show the first picture, the most muscular. Yeah, that's one. I mean, look at that, right? The fullness and that was. I was 273 at this show.
Oh, that's 2002 Arnold Classic.
Yeah.
Who did you beat? Is Chris Cormier?
Yeah, he got second. He had the dreads that year, cornrows. So, listen, Ironman was great. 01 Olympia, I guess, was like astounding just because it was such a shocker for the first time. I mean, people say 99, 09.
Yeah. I said
Olympia.
this, I don't know, we never talk about this, but you got the phone call from me. I left a message on your cell phone.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
1 minute into the prejudging. Okay, so 2007, he won, but I don't think you were at your best. 2007.
Should I have won or?
No, I told you this. I wouldn't give it to you. Listen. Okay.
J-Mac, what an asshole, huh? Comes on my podcast and tells me.
Come on, you come here, you tell him you beat him 3 out of 4 times, and you tell him you shouldn't have won.
Now I got to get Victor Martinez on the podcast. All right, so 07, I shouldn't have won.
I mean, listen.
08, I lose, to Dexter.
2008, he loses, right, to Dexter. So kind of you don't expect it, right? Now he's going to make a comeback because usually when Miss Olympia loses, he never comes back.
Done,
it's done. And like I said, and I'm a fan of aesthetics, right? So you would think I would be inclined towards Dexter Jackson, right? 1 minute if to prejudging. They didn't even do like complete quarter turns. Like, okay, I called Jay Cutler, so congratulations, you win. I mean, it was, for me, it was like shocking. The difference was like, it was not comparable. You were so dominant. That's why you see, you beat the greats, Ronnie Coleman, 2006. So maybe my also expectations and everybody else is that 2007 you have to repeat, this, and now you would be even more dominating, as Ronnie Coleman 2007 wasn't really competitive, right? And I think you were just slightly off, and when you're off, you should have been penalized, right? So kind of,
you were with me in 07.
I stayed with him that year. I got that year. I remember I just got off tour, and I got home Sunday night. I landed from Utah at 10, and he called me. And he's like, what are you doing this week? And it was my only week I had off the whole year. And he's like, can you fly out here tomorrow? Because Dave couldn't come out. Carrie had to work. And he's like, I'm not going to be able, I can't drive. And can you help me? And then I was like, all right. So I booked a flight. And the next morning I flew to Vegas for 07.
Yeah. So, and I had the infection. No one, we talk about this. So I had a windstroke, get infected. And Silvio Samuel, this is, I think you were, I don't know if he was at your place then, but so he came out and we had this DMSO. And I was sitting, I remember exactly, I was sitting in my bathroom, and he came and he put this DMSO thing, and he was rubbing. What was he rubbing?
He
in?
massaged something in it.
But I already had a tan on.
Uh-huh.
I already had done my like one coat of tan.
Yeah.
This was days out. And next thing you know, like, because it was swollen, I had a bump, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want this to show.
Yeah.
And of course, that DMSO and putting that tan, and it just infected the thing even worse.
It looked like the knot went away, but it leaked into his bloodstream. Because obviously, if it's a knot, the white blood cells are holding it in, and it leaked it into his bloodstream.
So it was all smooth, and I could barely do the biceps. So I was like, shit, should I pull out of the show? Or
that explains. I mean, look, you pull it off and you won. Maybe it's not dominant, and assholes like me or somebody else could say maybe you deserve it, you didn't deserve it, right? But you still won. And there was, how it is nowadays when you criticize somebody, like especially these new guys, they got so offended. I say, it's my opinion, right? And I said it. And look, sometimes differences are so close, and I favor conditioning here was way better. Like if you beat me in Ironman, your condition was better than mine.
So
I
you
would
could
have
have
no
said,
problem.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I would accept it. But, judges are going for whatever.
In 07, honestly, I thought he was going to die.
Oh,
Seriously. No, it was that bad. He couldn't, when he would talk, his jaw was shaking. And
Yeah.
when we
You
talked,
told me that story.
Yeah, and he would just,
oh, my God.
and I was like, dude, this isn't good. Like something's shutting down.
But that DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, right? It's transdermal agent, brings everything. So God knows what is in this cream that you
goes
put
in
it inside your body. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that you were infected. But
Didn't you? I remember that the night show, there was a room. Didn't you get an IV?
No. I mean, I was supposed to go to Australia for Tony Doherty to tour. And I remember I was like, I can't come. I got a bad infection. And I remember I started antibiotics. I mean, Carrie was, she's a nurse practitioner. So it's like, it was an issue. But I ended up going. I ended up going, yep.
I remember you saying you're like, I'm dumping blood because I got to fly 16 hours.
Yeah, and it was a mess, and that was the worst. That was the worst year, even worse than losing for me.
At which point of time did you realize you can win Olympia?
When I went on the European tour with Coleman in 2000 and finished second to him, and Chris Aceto said, you're going to beat
2000.
It
Dennis
was
James
after,
was there, right?
It was after, it was after, he might have got third, I think, in a couple of the shows.
So
it was after I placed eighth, coincidentally, only myself and Ronnie of the big caliber names went, like
and
out of the top
James,
10.
yeah.
What, I don't think Dennis was top 10 then, was he? No.
2000, yeah, he was.
I don't think so.
10, yeah.
Maybe if he was, it was close to 10th, right? So it was like we were the top two in the top 10 to go on the tour. Some reason Kevin didn't go and none of the guys went. So nice, I was able to collect some checks, but I got to stand next to Ronnie for the first time that I had been talking about for years. And next thing you know, I mean, I thought, Chris is like, I'm telling you, you're going to beat him. You're going to beat him. Chris was my biggest cheerleader, and I was like somewhat believable.
Yeah.
And I died, like I dropped some weight, and I came in really solid for the last show in England for Kerry Kay show. And then, of course, he's like telling me all year in 2001, you're going to beat this guy this year, I'm telling you. And then when I showed up, what happened?
Enough. Wow. Did you mention Dennis James has held that 2000 Olympia? I mentioned back in the day there was also at 12 o'clock noon, you're going to be on the stage. 2000 Olympia was first time that they changed it. So I know going into the Olympia, I was working with him, and so he was asking me, okay, Milus, is there anything else you think we can do to make even, bigger difference? So I told him, like, well, yeah, you can shoot 45 minutes before the stage insulin and pump up and look fucking ridiculous. But if a show is not on time, it can backfire. Since you competed, so many, was it ever late? I said, you're right, it was never late. Oh, I'm doing it. Okay. So now, we go there. That's the time that Triple H was there. So Triple H come at 12 o'clock noon and fucking talks for like half an hour. And then first time at Olympia, instead of everybody going on the stage like it used to be, one by one, start going. So if you look, Dennis looked crazy at 12 noon, right? And everybody was taking pictures of him, and he did the black and white photos backstage, looking crazy, crazy, crazy. And he was so confident. Dennis's shoulders, chest, it was just, oh my God. But then, he sit down, let the blood go in, and like 45 minutes, an hour later, he pulled water, like it switched, and he didn't place very well. So I think that in Europe he looked much better, but I think he placed.
Yeah, I remember, he was like one of the most incredible transformation guys. I mean, I talk about him, Gustavo Bedell. I mean, even Hidetada. I met Hidetada in 2004 in Japan.
Yeah.
And he was nothing then, you know what I mean? So I've watched all these guys that you helped, and I mean, what's the secret to your, like...
It was just my style of training with the insulin. I mean, really, there's, as you know, the drugs, steroids, it's about the same. I mean, some people take more. I usually reduce. My cycles would be mild, comparing to some of the guys. But I would drive everything inside the muscle during a workout, and then post-workout replenish everything, and it always worked. I mean, Dennis James put over 40 pounds in the first 4 weeks. Gustavo 30-something, Dennis Wolf, Marcus Rula.
Did these guys just not know a lot about nutrition on top of that?
They knew, but really insulin was the difference back in the day.
But do you think people were afraid to eat?
That also. I mean, you touch the subject of you were training twice a day, I was training twice a day, and now but it's overtraining and all this stuff.
Does anyone train twice a day anymore?
I don't think so.
Very rare.
I really
think some guys do leg splits.
On the same day? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I would always, you see, you did the 2 days on, 1 off. I was actually doing 6 days straight, 2 workouts a day pretty much. But to answer your diet question, I think that a lot of people undereat, nowadays. Undereat, undertrain. So I'm talking about maximization, and you're a perfect example. I mean, you push your body to absolute limit. I do remember even seeing you sometimes in the guest posings, and you would show up at the guest posing just like a contest shape. I don't know where
I was competing twice a year, probably those years too. But I always had abs and leg cuts, so I mean, looked a little better. I wasn't always in the best of shape, but and I didn't compete as many times as you. I mean, you mentioned you did.
You didn't need to. For me, it was every.
What do you regret with your career, whether it's competitive or?
The biggest regret is for me using a synthol in my arms. That's.
Tell me why you did that.
Okay. Up until 97, I mean, I was told many times, "Oh, Milus, with the bigger arms, you would have a chance, right?" And we were using Esiclen back in the day, but then it was not available anymore, right? Yeah. And then Kerry Case came 97 Olympia. If you remember, Flex was supposed to beat Dorian Yates, and then he pulled out of the show 2 weeks out. And Kerry was looking for him and didn't find him, so he said, "Milus, can you please give this to Flex?" Because he had to go back to England. And I said, there was like 12 bottles of something. I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Synthol, and you inject this in the small body parts." And I said, "Oh, wow, can I try? Can you get me some?" I said, "Just take half." So, of course, I started, and then initially I was getting great results with that one. I don't want to say great results because I never want to encourage anybody to do it. I really hate. I think it's the
biggest mistake you made.
Biggest mistake, yeah. So, but I got my arms to 22.5 inches, like, oh, shit, So I was but it changed the shape, anatomy, and then I ran out of that one. So somebody else gave me from South Africa, and that probably had some silicone in it. And then it just really, it was super hard to push anyway. And then I realized there was crystallization. It's fibrotic tissue, necrotic, and then you touched my arms, and it was like, oh my God, it's dead to a door. So when you sell your soul to the devil, you get result, and then devil comes and claims it. So the bigger arms that I had for a year,
they looked ridiculous at one of the shows I saw. Like they would just look swollen,
like a bricks. I mean, it's embarrassing.
But it ruined your career. So that's why in 2006, when you were going to come back and compete, now you already had damaged the arms at this point. So you were a little concerned about that.
Yeah, it would be visible, but by 2006, kind of, I could pull it off. Specifically posing if I put the forearm close to the biceps, not away. To 99 and Night of Champions, it looked ridiculous.
I don't think anyone really uses it at the top level. Do you,
Nowadays, every time when I coach somebody, I tell them, you have to give me your previous diet, previous cycle, what you're doing right now. And many still like to use it.
I'm shocked. I mean, because people ask me about it, and I'm like, dude, no one uses that. Like Ronnie and I, we never met. Like that wasn't needed, right? I mean, if you had, like, I was always like, I wanted to have the striate, like this. I have a split still in my biceps. Obviously this one's torn a little bit, but like that was the whole thing. It's like I wanted to have arms like Robbie Robinson and the bicep peaks.
Ronnie Coleman too. I mean, he had a crazy bicep. Yeah. But
so it never made sense to me. And I know there was pump and pose and all these other things, but it was
so they would give you that story binds to the fiber. I mean, it's not pharmaceutical. It's something made in a lab. And this Chris Clark from Germany. I mean, he contacted me back in that day and gave me all these stories. How tell me what I want to hear. Oh, it's going to make it bigger? Oh, yeah, it's good. Okay, let me use it without really analyzing and dissecting it. And
tell me the most impressive bodybuilder you've ever seen, like a memory of like who was impressive. I mean, you talked about Munzer earlier off camera. Like, was he unbelievably shredded?
He was he was ridiculously shredded. He was like this year around, super dry, and then cross-dried.
Is that genetics, you think, a lot?
It could be. I mean, really, I have that Turkish guy, Hamdullah Aykutlu. He was the glute guy, right?
Glute
guy, and then striated lats.
But not huge.
Not huge, symmetric. He would, be okay for classic physique nowadays. But Munzer was, as far as how shredded. Ronnie, I mean, at one of the interviews, I said that your 2009 could be considered, you in 2009 would beat Ronnie at his best. And I said that publicly, right? But then a lot of people, send me the pictures, okay? I said, okay. And then I've seen some of the pictures of Ronnie. I said, like, okay.
You forget, So when, because listen, Ronnie like this from behind was like, it was just so perfect, right? The tie-ins and, we forget that Ronnie like had a super small waist and what do you think causes distension with the bodybuilders? With the distended stomachs?
Distended stomachs, well, GH, extensive GH could.
Listen, I'll be honest. I mean, I used everything there was, but I never had it.
Yeah.
I mean, 99, I had it a little bit, but do you think the lack of I think my theory is I train twice a day. A lot of the guys train twice, and I feel a lot of those guys had flat stomachs. Like they trained more. I think guys nowadays, they don't train as much. They just don't. And they just eat. Is it overeating? Is it
overeating?
I disagree with you that it's the GH and the drugs.
I mean, GH causes the growth of organs. So
but how much do you have to take, Milos?
I mean, look, even Flex Wheeler being in Germany at that one time, he had to pull it off, and they put him in the hospital, and they said, like, oh, you understand, your liver, your kidneys, your heart.
See, I didn't know that story. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is growth hormone. It does cause that, but.
Certain guys don't have any at all.
Is it genetics?
A ton of growth,
Yeah. I mean, you're a perfect example, and I wish I could say that I have the answer. They accuse me of ruining the sport because I brought the insulin, and insulin makes this kind of. I used insulin since '93 until 2003, and I didn't have a distended, right? So, like you say, you don't agree that the GH would do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's insulin either. I think it's a combination of genetics and overeating.
Overeating, yeah. It's quite possible, yeah.
People not training their midsections, right? I feel like I'll be honest, when I watched Battle of the Olympias and Up and Coming, I mean, that Mike Quinn might have called you an ironing boy with abs, but I always watched how you trained your abs, and what I noticed, you did a lot of hanging leg raises, right? Because I feel that that
stretches.
The stretching, it's going to keep that flat.
Yeah.
Right, if you think about the pose, right? I try to mimic the poses with the training, right?
Yeah.
So I would actually hang off a bench when I did my crunches and hook my heels to a bench, and I would, do crunches that way. So it actually expanded. It pulled my.
Yeah. So that's what I always say to Regan and everybody. You stretch and make that gap.
Just contract, right? Yeah.
And then that keeps your stomach flat, and it makes it deeper. And I mean, that was your pose against Ronnie, right? So you have to always capitalize. Even standing relaxed, your abs were always super deep. Yeah. But
one thing I wanted to bring up, just because you and I, we've gotten to know you over the last couple months, and you were involved with Victor Conte, with the Balco Labs and the project World's Fastest Man and all that. And I had no idea until you brought it up.
Who was the world's fastest man at that point?
There was Maurice Green,
and he raced Kevin Levrone.
No, that was Chamberlain.
Yeah. Okay,
right, Chamberlain. I was at that race. I had actually videotaped. So Victor Conte contacted me back in. I think it was 97.
But if people don't know, Victor Conte was a guy with Balco Labs with Marion Jones and Bill Romanowski.
He had a snack systems. He is a mineral expert. He is inventor of ZMA, zinc, magnesium,
which is a great product, by the way.
It's very good. So it's a mineral anabolic formula and all this stuff. And I don't know if you got it at the time, but I got... there was not email, there was a mail, like, oh yeah, he's Victor Conte, he's doing this research and studies with all the elite athletes, swimmers, track and field, football, right, and bodybuilders, to do a blood test and estimate magnesium and zinc level, because he believes that everybody is deficient. So I even answered to him, like, I'm sure I'm not deficient, right? And I wasn't deficient, and that attracted his attention. Like, so what do you do? And then we start talking, and he realized that, I do a lot of research. And then we struck the friendship, but then we start talking about enhancements, right? Because he works with many athletes. So at the time, you could use GH specifically and pass any test. You can use insulin and pass any test, EPO and pass any test. So he wanted to apply this to some of the athletes, and everything that I told him worked. So he's like, oh my God, if you continue like this, you can break the world record. So of course, records are to be broken. So are you interested? I say, yeah, let's break the hardest record. So what would be a hardest? Fastest man alive. So even at that time, I told him, let's pick the person that has no chance.
His last name was Montgomery.
That was Tim Montgomery. I mean, don't pick somebody that is already, close. Let's, in order to see that this would work, pick somebody that is
on the
way
radar.
down. So to make long story short, in 9 months, we broke the record from 978 to 977. Of course, look, when you look at the Olympic sports, you would always want to believe that everybody is drug-free, everything is,
no way.
I was like this, I wouldn't want to believe it. So for Project World Record, there was Tim Montgomery, there was Trevor Graham, who was coach of Marion Jones and Tim Montgomery, and there was Charlie Francis, expert in the sprint, that did Ben Johnson at the time. He's really phenomenal. So he told us so many stories of how many Flo Joe, Carl Lewis, testing positive.
He failed several drug tests.
Yeah.
The U.S. doctors showed the
yes.
the
Okay,
documents.
so not to touch the subject too much, but here's like everybody's cheating. So say, I know we can create undetectable steroids. I mean, the way it worked then and probably even now, so I hope WADA is not watching. Back then, if you have a oxandrolone or oxymetholone or stanozolol, it doesn't matter what, they know metabolite they can expect in the blood. But if you take, at the time, norbelatone of that tetrahydrogastrinone, clear, that we called it clear, it's something that was never made anywhere, so there is no metabolite. They can't find it. So we tested with so many athletes. And they went to UCLA lab, and everybody was passing. So if 50 people are passing Olympic lab test, that means you are safe. So that's how, there was like 17 Olympic medalists that took it, and some famous baseball player, boxer, not to name the names, with the Balco scandal, right? That basically undetectable stuff could not be detected unless Trevor Graham sent a sample to UCLA, and then now they have a metabolite, and now they retested everything, and everybody failed. So this is how it goes. I mean, I'm
so
sure
there was a whistleblower for the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. You know how it always goes.
I know the guy that runs WADA now. I think he was an IRS agent. He was the one that was digging through all that stuff too. I'm forgetting his name right now.
Yeah. The thing is, there is always way around it, right? Even to this day, somebody was asking me, to help them. I say, I don't want to be the last thing that they need.
I remember on ESPN they had this thing called 979 or 971, and it was the '88 Seoul Olympics, and it's when Ben Johnson tested positive, and every person in that race within 3 or 4 years had tested positive in a different way, every single person, including Carl Lewis. So it's not like we're making something up. I mean,
it's
the doping agency showed the documents that he tested positive for.
Charlie Francis told us.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you knew he was. I didn't know he knew.
I knew about it. And I remember the whole thing. I remember when it all went down, and of course
it was all on national news.
Yeah. Tell me about the Levrone race with the guy. How close did he get to it?
So
Kevin seemed to do everything, man. Like
Kevin is superhuman. Yeah, I mean, he is super powerful, as you know.
Did you think he had a shot? Or?
No. I mean, this is
one of the fastest guys in the world.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to challenge anybody. Okay, if you and I right now go to the UFC octagon with somebody, I mean, it's going to take a microsecond for unless I can run, But not at that level, and he just smoked him. Kevin would be good for probably average. You and me would probably lose to him.
How did they get set up? How did the guy agree to it?
Victor Conti, because Kevin is specific. He can talk, his story, and he did whatever on 60-meter dash, so he would throw some number that was comparable. Okay, maybe he has a chance. And because we were working with this guy also, Dre Chamberlain, so he showed up. They had a photo shoot in my gym doing some bench presses and squats and stuff like that. And then we went to the field, and a guy just, smoked him. That was like twice the difference on the 60 meters.
Yeah, I remember seeing the race.
So what's like one of your we haven't really touched on Dorian much. What's like one of your favorite Dorian stories, because you competed against him?
Yeah, look, I trained with Dorian first when he came. 91, really, at that Night of Champions, he was phenomenal, and he was also.
That was his pro debut, wasn't it?
No, he did.
Benaziza won the show.
90 Night of Champions. Benaziza won, and he was second, and Benaziza beat him on the back. And that's something that is unthinkable, because Dorian's back is probably
the greatest of all time, right?
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, we talk about Ronnie Coleman, but there are some pictures when you
right. I remember seeing Dorian's back for the first time, and it just like the thickness in the lower lats.
Yeah, and
like it seemed like it came like that much off. Like there was a Christmas tree, and like it was just like two shells,
Yeah. So I went when you read all this heavy duty, one set warm up and one all out. I mean, I don't know how many people actually believed it. I didn't. I can't imagine that this is how you train.
I heard it wasn't how he trained now.
Well,
he did a lot of volume, actually, but he would work up to that one set, but he would take a lot of the weights that you and I would push to get there was his volume.
Yeah, so this is what I was expecting. So he offered, to train with me. This first
when
time
was this?
95. I was in after the Olympia. 95. I was in a Gold Gym Venice training and doing legs, and then Dorian came with Leroy, his training partner. And Milos, too bad you're training legs. I would train legs with you. I said, well, when are you going to train legs? Next day. I said, I'm in. Because how can you pass? But it's okay. I'll follow your routine. And he warms up. Warms up 2 sets. There was not one, and it goes 1 set all out, and it was nothing. So I said, like, okay, well, can you please at least try, one of my favorites? And my favorite was Icarian. It looks like what do you call it, hack squat, but it's vertical. They had it at the Venice Golds.
It's a hinge. It's on a hinge. You step on it, and
it's crazy, crazy. And he did that, and of course I do this all the time. So I was way stronger than him on that one. He didn't kind of like it because he couldn't do it perfect. Dorian was very strong and doing everything in perfect form. You have to give it to him. But after this workout, we trained in the Coliseum gym a few times and in Birmingham a few times, right? And he was always super low volume. So, I was kind of the Q skeptic and didn't believe that that's how he trains. For me, it's impossible to go one set warm up and then all out. I was terrified I'm going to tear something. Because, I could squat 6.5 plates for 6 reps. What is the first warm up and 1 plate, 2 plates, 3 plates, and then go to 6.5? It just didn't make sense, So, but that's how he trained. I mean, and he would say like, why, keep hitting the nail if you can nail it in one hit? I say no, but one hit you can go too far and break more than the muscle, right? You can, and look at his injuries. Now when he speaks, he says he wish he did more.
How do you feel about machines versus free weights? Like you're training Regan Grimes, right? Mm-hmm. Do you tend to do as much free weights now, or do you focus on
mix?
Machines?
I mean, let's put it this way.
Like where are the guys squatting 6.5 plates on the squat anymore?
Nobody.
I know, but that's just you just said like I'm training him, but why isn't he doing this?
Okay, he has a little bit knee problems.
Okay,
so, then when you have to,
no one. But I'm saying no one squats. So I'm not just trying to pinpoint him, but like, dude, I built on like the front squats,
basics,
right?
Yeah, he likes front squats. I don't know if you watched some of the videos. I made him do front squats several times. Yeah, I managed.
You do it on a Smith machine, or do you?
No, free weight. But then
the Smith machine was always better for me, to be honest.
So he told me that he prefers, and I let him do it. For me, it's just stimulate the muscle. If you close your eyes and you stimulate, and you don't know if it's machine or if it's Smith machine,
muscle connection.
And you do it. I'm happy if I can reach that failure, control muscle contraction. Yeah, but to answer this. Am I strictly old-fashioned guy, heavy-duty, compound exercise, free weights? No, because machines, and some machines are great, make to isolate that primary mover. I said this in a Flex magazine. There was a questionnaire. If you fail on the 6 repetitions on a bench press or a chest press machine, which of those 2 exercises would exhaust your chest muscle more? So I said machine. Why? Because machine is already made to isolate, to use the stabilizing and neutralizing secondary muscle groups. So 99 for a road to Olympia. I don't know if you've seen it. My segment, I said like to prove that point, I train exclusively on the machines. Yeah. So you can. I mean, for me, it's just stimulation, the feeling that I have in the muscle. And as I talked to Regan when I train him, I really want him to be his worst enemy, not his best friend. What does it mean? When he puts the load on a muscle, I want him to slow it down and contract it. So make exercise as hard as you can, not as easy as you can. If you do slow eccentric and just explode on concentric, as Dorian was saying just recently, like, any pressing movement, he says, imagine the spring and then lower it, slowly and then explode. Yeah. But when you explode, how can you really focus on a muscle? I was saying slow concentrics are one of the best stimulating exercises. Many experts disagree. John Meadows disagreed with me, and I'm very good friends with John Meadows. By the way, today I got the John Meadows Award sword from Fouad Abiad. Thank you very much. But when he came and trained with me, I said, okay, John, let me show you super slow hack squats, eccentric, concentric, super slow Smith machine, any shoulder presses, incline presses. When you purposely go stop yourself and squeeze for 8 seconds. Slow preacher crawls. I mean, slow concentrics. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I listen, because I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm like, I'm disagreeing that I still think a person needs free weights, like to develop a. But what you say makes a lot of sense.
We talk about that all the time. Where you just don't see the grainy physique.
I don't,
anymore.
and you know,
Like
I don't know.
dense.
The diet protocols are different. Like people have cheat days now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never cheated on my diet. Like even Chris Aceto does cheat days for the guys.
I don't.
We never did. Like it was either more carbs, or it was just rotation of whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed like a cheat meal. Like no, there was 16 weeks of like hell, right?
Yeah.
We never cheated, even when you thought, oh, I look unbelievable. That was like, okay, just keep pushing harder, right?
I never cheated. Ask Reagan when he had a cheat meal. Last was probably in Reno. You know, I don't give him. Why would I give you stupid calories that can inflame you? I give you nutrition. I give you more carbs. But on this, I love to disagree. So, would free weights be a base and a fundamental thing? Yes, absolutely. But if there were not free weights back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, there was just machines. You don't think they would develop same kind of physiques? I mean, anything you can do with free weights, you can replicate in a machine.
Yeah, I just think, I think the core has a lot to do with it. So when you're focused on using dumbbells or even a barbell and there's that balance thing, I think just internally you can get, I don't know if it just, to me, it seems like, and this is just my opinion, like we can argue about it all day, but I just think like the ruggedness of the physiques they don't have that same, but listen, Phil Heath was unbelievable. He was mostly machines, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some guys never squat. I mean, Paul Dillette never squatted, right?
I
And his legs were unbelievable.
Hard,
I know. Well,
period.
I mean, I used to get pissed because I see him do 40-pound dumbbells and his arms were 23 inches. But it's the same thing like Chris Cormier. I was so mad before that Ironman. I flew into Venice, and he beat us.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, yeah, Chris was eating a Subway sandwich yesterday. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, here I am cooking fish at Marina Pacific Hotel, and Cormier's eating a turkey sandwich at it's just, it's so frustrating because all the science that we talk about, like you're the mind. But you know what? It don't matter sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, some Dexter Jackson asked him, he never dieted. He
ate
said,
McDonald's, but he did have to change up later. In
First
his career.
time he dieted and ate pre-packed meal was last Olympia, but he looked the worst. I mean, really, the first time he was on a bodybuilding diet, he didn't look like a bodybuilder, that we know. So yeah, some people can get away, and I'm glad that you say you never cheated. I don't cheat. I had maybe 2 cheat meals a year. When you really feel like I crave this, so let it happen. But what would be a purpose of giving Regan or Samson or somebody else? Okay, have it. For Samson, actually, I gave him. I depleted him and then I gave him because it works for him. Right. For Regan, I would much rather save carbs for the high carb day and just load it in the muscle that I want to load it. Yeah.
So the Arnold's coming up here next week, and you got 2 people in the show, and some of the other people. Give us kind of your...
Is Logan competing also?
No, Logan is just focusing on Olympia. Yeah.
Give us your assessment of the guys that are doing the show and the 2 guys you're working with.
So Brandon Curry is the biggest favorite to win, obviously.
He should win it, right?
Yeah, if he shows up in the condition, it's going to be very hard to beat. He's former Mr. Olympia, former Arnold Classic champion. He pushed Big Ramy.
Won last year.
So it's very, very. He's ecstatic. He's take everything. Only thing that he doesn't have a balanced upper body, lower body. And if you're nitpicking, if you're really judging, it's okay. Balance is supposed to be a major factor. Sometimes he pulls those quads to look decent, but many times he relaxes them. And, so some people could challenge him. William Boniak, also former champion, second at Olympia, was fading in the last couple of years, right? So I think that he's going to put it together. He's thickly muscled, striated, every bodybuilder is bodybuilder, but he's narrow. So people with better structure and width can overwhelm him in some poses, so this is how I see it.
Steve Kuklo.
Steve Kuklo is monster, absolute, 285 or something, right? He would possibly standing next to you, right? It's okay, well, Jay Cutler-ish kind of physique, but he couldn't touch you because you had all this quality. You have a more pronounced V-taper.
Detail, right?
Yeah, lacks the detail, shallow abs, not really separated and strided. He can get hard, but the hardness without separation doesn't appear so good. So you have to be super dry and hard to look conditioned. He takes a lot of space, so he can look big, competitive in every pose, side chest, side triceps, big arms, big legs, big calves. He's going to be competitive, but for me, I'm just, it's not the wow factor. This is a physique that, wow, we want to represent. He was second after prejudging last year, contesting for a title. Like you said before the show, maybe everybody's sleeping on him. He can show up and mess a lot of people up. He could.
What about Cedric?
Cedric is not competing,
Oh, he's done.
Yeah, he's not competing. And I really think that, you could see from beautiful V-taper and shapely monster that he was, now he's becoming, age is catching up. If you look at the book of physiology, 20 years old, 30 years, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, physiology changes and it's visible for him. His waist got thicker, the legs got smaller. So I don't think that Cedric could be competitive. I think this is why he pulled out. There's not official reason why he pulled out.
I don't know.
Yeah, so now...
So you got two guys in the show.
My guys.
What about the Butcher, though? Let's talk about the Butcher.
Okay, the Brad Wilkins,
yeah.
Tremendous. I mean, he made a great improvements. I said before in some of the shows that he kind of reminds me of my physique. I mean, he has a... we have a similarity. So, of course, if I say that he is similar to me, I have to like him, right? Yeah, so I do. He has a very good aesthetic upper body. Everything is there. Yeah, legs are still not that sweeping quads and crazy separation. He's going to be very competitive. I know that he is confident he can win and give people a run for the money. But so are my guys as well. And I think, as I said before, differences are very small. So if somebody comes peaked, super full, super dry, and then has a structure, now we are becoming competitive. Justin Rodriguez, yeah, very good, improved, crazy front double biceps, back double biceps, yeah. Good structure, and everything. It just, when you compare to the super shapely aesthetic guys, he's still not there. And when you compare to the real monsters, he's still not there. But he's getting in very good condition. He's going to be contender. He was fourth last year, so he's going to be a major contender.
Him to be in that top 5.
Oh yeah. And when I say top 5, anybody can beat anybody. Now Samson, the Uda that I train, I prepared him for 5 shows. In all 5 shows, he was in tremendous shape. He contacted me after John Meadows died, and John was preparing him, and he says, "Can you help me out because he was lost?" And I did, and we did very, sometimes you take risks and sometimes you play safe. With him, I said, we're going to play safe, and we're playing safe. And all 5 shows, I think he could have won 3 out of 5 easily. He didn't, but he looked very competitive. He is bigger, fuller, and more conditioned already 2 weeks out now than any other show. They say he has resemblance of Phil Heath and Sean Roden and Flex Wheeler. I mean, he has that aesthetic bodybuilder, old school Serge Nubret, but bigger, right? Mm-hmm. He believes he can win, and he's going to that show with that intention.
He's someone that just nobody's talking about him at all.
Yeah,
which hopefully it motivates him.
It's a dark horse. I mean, a couple of people see him, Nick Trigili and Nick Second.
Who's that?
Yeah, it's one of the podcasts. Yeah. So Regan, I mean, they would always say that I would be biased towards my competitors. I was big fan of Regan's physique from first time I saw him.
Yeah.
And like you said, if he puts enough muscle, he's going to be very hard to beat. He is as aesthetic as you can be, tall, wide, round shoulders, crazy back, striations top to bottom, hamstring glutes, ridiculous. He needed a little bit bigger legs, a little bit fuller chest, a little bit bigger, better peak on the biceps. So can Regan beat them in size department? No. Aesthetically, right away, I think he aesthetically wins as a just aesthetic standpoint. Condition has to be great to be competitive. I mean, he can be top 3 he can be out of top 5. This is very easy. What judges decide to do. So I think we all want to see him bigger on the stage and fuller, and conditions. So that's the plan. You're going to see him on Friday. I'm curious what you're going to think.
I'm just thinking about after the Olympia when Regan and I were downstairs chatting, and he's like, who should I work with, blah, blah, blah. And I messaged Milus and I said, hey, I got someone that I think you would like to work with. And he was just like, oh, I'm still here. Who? And I said, Regan. He's like, where are you at? I'll be there in 15 minutes. He came immediately.
Yeah, I mean, he's, of course, type of physique. You wanna see him excel. And I pay close attention to the details, right? And I wish I had more time. Unfortunately, in Christmas time, we got the COVID.
Yeah,
and
he laid because he was staying with me then. Still,
yeah.
He just laid in bed for days.
Yeah, and
couldn't get food down, nothing.
And that affected the preparation. So he's not maybe as improved in size department, but as of this morning, he's 262.5.
He's big. He's going to be bigger than he was at the Olympia for sure.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
And we just need to. And he has that quality, right? So as long as his chest is full, I mean, muscle that determines how he looks for him is not shoulders, it's not back, because it's always there, right? It's chest. You know how many people, they have that one critical muscle that has to be there, and usually it's chest. So for him, his chest has to be full, stomach is super small, deep abs, striated glutes, striated back, hamstring, and then separated quads.
I told Regan 5 years ago when I started working with him, when you're 30, you'll be battling to win the Olympia. Yeah. And he's a year and a half off.
That's kind of the project. Of course, you don't want to think 3 years from now. You want to think of 2 weeks from now. And this is a super competitive lineup. What is going to happen? But being in that first call out and then maybe being moved around and being compared. You see, aesthetically, he should stand next to Brandon Curry.
Of course.
So if he's full and dry, can he beat him? I don't know, but he's going to give him run for the money.
Well, we look forward to it. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. We appreciate you coming on, man. I know it's been a lengthy one, but listen, a lot of people are going to want to try to find you. Where can they locate you?
Yeah, social media, Instagram is the best, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to find me. And pretty much if you put milus.sarcev at anything, Gmail, Hotmail, iCloud, I prefer iCloud.com. But if
and
you try
you're
any
still
of those,
taking on clients, and you work with not just athletes, or
just bodybuilders. Yeah, okay. I don't have a time now, especially with the recent success of my athletes. There's just so many hours in a day. You can't do everyone, but everybody's super serious that really want to excel. I like to work.
Coming back, the Masters Olympia is coming back.
Yeah, there's no.
Would you like to see on stage?
I want to see. No. No, you're 3 for 4. I think Jay needs to even this up.
Yeah.
You know what though? But the two of you guys should maybe this Friday we should have a pose down.
You
guys are both still in shape.
Hey, has there ever been he's gonna crank up the insulin? Eddie, has there ever been a successful comeback?
You.
No.
I mean, look, the greatest comeback in the history of bodybuilding would be female Juliet Bergman, that 17 years after she competed and never won the Olympia, came back and won.
What about Arnold's comeback?
Arnold's comeback, after 5 years. I mean, he looked good, but I don't think he deserved to win that one. It's just Arnold, 1980. I mean, his legs were considerably down, and,
There's a couple. Jenny Worth came back.
Yeah, I prepared her.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
She did, because she's
we feature on the channel.
She took what? Probably 15 years off, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying I want to talk about
male bodybuilding.
Mr. Olympia.
Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Who made a greatest comeback?
Not like after a time off, like Phil Heath. Could he come back and compete right now?
You see, I thought that 2005 when he was coming back that he's going to put it together, but then you could see. I think really after age of 40, no matter what we think, body is not the same. Whatever you can get away with. I mean, when you were a teenager and in early 20s, early 30s, everything worked, and injuries and the physiological changes.
I honestly thought Phil was going to do the Arnold this year. I was waiting for that to come out. Because, I mean, look, his last time on stage, he was top 3. I mean.
Yeah, it was a gift also.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was a gift. It's a great bodybuilder. I mean, let's face it, one of the best, yeah.
Sure.
But, you know, the stomach is so distracting. How can you hide it? Any front poses?
Any pose, yeah.
Yeah, you can. So there is front of your legs, front lat spread, front double biceps, most muscular, and ab shot. There's way too many poses that you can't get away with it. So, yeah, he would not be competitive. I think that just like Ronnie came back 2007, even it was sad to see him. You know, it is a time to go. 2007, I was interviewed and I said this, that Ronnie shouldn't have competed. I think that he tried it 2008 too, right?
No.
Yeah? Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think there's ever been anyone that's really successful.
We'll have to see. I'm excited to see. But you know, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, you know, we get together all the time.
Yeah.
And Jay, you're
I'd love
not
to come
available
over for dinner. I hear your sushi with the torch.
Yeah,
really, sir.
We watch fights at Milus' house.
The UFC. You don't watch UFC?
Not as much.
Not as much.
Not every week.
We go there and for some reason Betty can make the salmon perfect, and if we try to make it at home the same way, it's terrible. I can't do it. Yeah. He's got these flames and stuff, and it's like,
well, but
he's getting into the culture, you know.
Yeah, one question that I have for you is, you asked me the same. Who is the most impressive bodybuilder you've seen?
Dorian Yates.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm gonna lie. Lee Priest.
Are you serious?
Lee Priest off season when I saw him for the first time was unbelievable. But Dorian Yates, I guess, posed in Hawaii with him, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I saw him, you know, in '95 compete.
Yeah.
At the Olympia, and I never understood why he won until I actually watched the show and realized.
95.
Yeah, and then Narsa was third that year. That's the year.
95. I was in the front row, and Dorian's condition was off the chart.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But let's now. This is very interesting. Do you think his quads and hamstring? I mean, not calves are phenomenal. His quads, hamstring,
No, his arms.
abs, shoulders, biceps, triceps are top 10 in the world.
No. I mean, no. But it's just I think the combination of I thought he deservingly won that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's
but
interesting.
looking at pictures is a lot different from being there in person. But he was very the lats and.
So I said this. If
Lee
you can-
Priest is probably the most muscular. Like he was crazy when I
Man.
saw him for the first time when he was a kid. He was like 21. I mean,
I see him compete first time. I competed in the same Mr. Universe.
yeah.
When he came 17 years old, he guest posed with his mother as a mixed pairs. But just to conclude with Dorian, Dorian has a weak body. I mean, relatively weak body parts.
Yeah.
But every mandatory pose, he looks great.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I have to give it to him. And I said, okay, I talk about he doesn't have quads, but they look pretty good.
Yeah.
Doesn't have arms, but look pretty good. But really, when you analyze best arms of all time, he wouldn't be top 10.
No.
Best shoulders, best chest, best abs, many things. He had crazy back, crazy calves, but crazy conditioning. And I mean, he dominated in the hottest era. I mean, he was beating Flex and Sean and Kevin and Nasser and all these guys. So
see,
you
but
have to give him
do you
credit.
think when Ronnie came to his peak that Dorian would have beat him? I don't
I
think he
think that Ronnie 98 would beat any version of Dorian. 98 first Olympia when he was super shredded.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Yeah, that when I talked to Ronnie on his podcast, he agreed that 98 is his best ever.
See, I thought 01 Arnold was his best.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
And he was
Many
under
people say
250.
this.
Yeah.
Many people say that, but he agrees 98.
We all seem to hit like that one
One
time.
time. You hit it many times.
Yeah, but
You-
there was, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint it, but
So you say 2002 Arnold Classic, okay? Because I have to.
yeah.
Because I asked Kevin and Ronnie, he says 93 Night of Champions. He was small. That's his favorite. So
You know what's
2002
funny? I
Arnold
was
Classic.
actually at that iconic guest posing that Jay and Ronnie had
Yeah.
when you jumped on your back.
his back.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was up
Great
there.
in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
It was in
Oh, Bev
New York.
Francis, yeah,
It was
yeah.
Steve's. It was in New York City. And I was up there. I was working in the music industry. And I had a meeting with Sylvia Rohn at Universal. And you messaged me. You're like, I'm in New York. I'm like, oh, I'm in New York too.
Yeah.
And I went over there. And you had a little spot on the outside. And then you went on guest pose. And you and Ronnie came out. And he had his sunglasses on and his big boots. And then you jumped on his back, and I think Victor Martinez was in the crowd. I think he came up.
Mm.
I remember those things, and I remember seeing what these guys look like off season, and they just didn't look like real human beings.
No, but I'm glad that I have a Jay Cutler 2002 Honor Classic 90. Okay, I asked Flex Wheeler what was his best. What do you think?
93 Arnold.
That's what I would think, yeah, because I love that. He says 99 British Grand Prix. That he says, like, even Ronnie, like, suggested that he could have beat him. He couldn't beat him. I mean, but
no, 93 when he was like 218
he was
or whatever the fuck he
peeled.
Just aesthetic and
narrow, but
I mean,
it was
probably the best physique of all time.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, listen, man, we appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We can do it again when.
For sure.
Yeah.